Alright, so now we're at the highest point of the cemetery. And you can get kind of a pretty good feel for just how big this thing is. Welcome back to the Least Professional channel on YouTube. How you doing today? So today we're out at the Calais Cemetery. I'm not sure if that's how it's pronounced or not. It's kind of a small cemetery. We were driving around. We're in eastern Ohio right now. I don't even know what towns are near here. Essentially, we were driving around taking a bunch of back roads. I think we're close to Quaker City. There might be something else even closer than that. But we discovered this little cemetery here. It's actually not little. It's actually a pretty good sized cemetery. Not a lot of, no big statues, but there's a few smaller ones that I've been checking out and getting some pictures of here. So essentially we were driving around on this back road and we saw this sign that said Calais Cemetery, half-mile this way. It was down a dirt road. So we followed the dirt road, drove down about a half-mile or so, took a couple turns along the way, and stumbled on this little cemetery here. So checking that out, taking a look at what we can find. It's a rather nice day. Not too hot, not too cold, not too humid. So it'll be interesting what we can find in the cemetery. Hopefully we'll find some really cool statues. I've already found a couple of really cool ones. So I'm going to take pictures of those. I've already taken some pictures. I'm going to take some more pictures and I'll throw those in at the end of the video. So check those out. If you could go to the comments down below. Tell me, have you ever found a cemetery when you're out driving around in the middle of nowhere that you weren't expecting to see? It happens to us quite a bit. Usually they're pretty neat, and I found that a lot of older ones and a lot of ones that are more rural cemeteries tend to be the ones that, especially when they're taken care of, that are really cool and have some really neat stuff and history and stories in them to find. So that's what we're going to do today, try and find some stories and try and find some really cool statues. Alright, so I found these cool little figurines right here, so I grabbed a picture of those. I had to lay down on the ground actually to get the shot that I wanted to get. Just because sometimes in order to get the proper angle, to get a good angle for a shot, you gotta get in some weird ways. So laying down is one of the best ways for me, especially with these statuettes and get low to the ground. You gotta be careful though. You don't want to wind up in an ant's nest or something like that out here. Found this cool little angel statue right underneath this bush here. I'm trying to decide how I want to frame up the shot. It's not always easy. It's not always easy to figure out the best way to frame up a shot to have the image come out the best. So sometimes it takes a few minutes to really kind of figure out like where the best angle is going to be to get the best possible shot. A statue like this can be extremely difficult to get a good shot of because of how low it is to the ground. Even laying down, you can't always get the best possible shot. So I'm going to see what shot I can come up with for the statue here. Sometimes you'll find that when you're out in a cemetery, especially if you're looking at smaller statuettes and that kind of thing, that they've been knocked over or something's happened to them. It's not always people, sometimes it's animals, or maybe even just the wind. So in situations like that where you find a statue that's been knocked over or something like that, it's usually good practice to try to right it. That one was a little heavier than she looked. But it's usually a good idea to try to stand it upright, put it back in the place that it looks like it probably went. It's all about being respectful and keeping cemeteries cleaned up. There's a lot of older cemeteries especially that go unkept for years and can have a ton of vandalism, wear and tear over the years, animals getting in and knocking over things. So if you're ever out in a cemetery, don't be afraid to pick statues up, pick things up, put them in where they look like they're supposed to be. That doesn't necessarily go for headstones. A lot of older headstones that get knocked over, usually by time, but sometimes by vandals too. There's special ways that you have to go about fixing those. There's mortar that has to be applied and there's special things to follow. So if you don't know what you're doing with that kind of stuff, leave it to professional people or learn how to do it. But if you're going to do anything like that, you always need to reach out to whoever owns the cemetery. So sometimes it's a township, sometimes it's a private entity. Townships are supposed to keep up with cemeteries. There's laws around that kind of stuff. They don't always though, just because it costs money. So typically, if you want to try to help preserve a cemetery and fix up a cemetery that's time weathered or vandals have messed up, if you reach out to a township and say, hey, I'd like to do this, you got to have some way of showing that you know what you're doing. But usually if you tell them that you like to do it and you want to do it as a volunteer for free, they'll usually be okay with that, just because it's expensive to have a company come out to actually fix that kind of stuff. So having somebody volunteer to do it for free, they'll usually take you up on that offer. Alright, so now we're at the highest point of the cemetery, and you can get kind of a pretty good feel for just how big this thing is. Like, this is a pretty good sized cemetery for being out in the middle of nowhere. Not even close enough to a city for me to know which city it is. Found a lot of flowers here. I'll probably grab a couple pictures of those if I find any that stick out to me. Other than that, I don't see a whole lot of statues. Not every cemetery has them. Cemetery photography is very similar to things like landscape photography and city photography, because you're going out, you're looking for a specific subject, or you're looking for just any random subjects, and you don't always find what you're looking for, unfortunately. But that's where you keep your eyes open and you look for things that maybe weren't your original intended subject, but are something that stands out, that looks good. It's really all about having an eye for what you find artful, for what catches your eye whenever you're out shooting, whether that's in a cemetery or anywhere else. You constantly want to be looking for something that's going to stand out in your imagery and what you're trying to capture. For me, obviously, it's statues, flowers, interesting things in cemeteries. But for you, it might be landscape, it might be, if you're a city photographer, you're going into a city, you're going downtown somewhere, you want to take pictures of nightlife, or you want to take pictures of people, neon signs, that kind of stuff. That's all stuff that you can take pictures of. But sometimes you don't have those kind of things, so you got to find something that's going to stand out to you and that you're going to enjoy. This is a really good note too. Make sure you're always carrying spare batteries, especially if you have a standalone camera. I went to take a picture of these flowers right here and looked down, and my camera screen was off, and I thought maybe it just timed out, so I flipped it off and back on, nothing. My battery died. I wasn't paying attention to where the battery was at and how much battery was left. Thankfully, I've got a couple of spare batteries. They're fully charged up and ready to go, so it's not a big deal. But make sure you have spare batteries, because you never know when you're going to be out someplace and you're going to find the perfect shot and your battery dies. And that even goes for if you have a cell phone, because not all cell phones have spare batteries. Most of them are built in now, and you can't really swap them out. So have some way of charging your cell phone or checking the battery before you go to take pictures, because you'd be surprised how quick a battery will die when you're taking pictures on a pretty regular basis. So I think that's probably going to do it for this video. Head down in the comments section and leave me a comment. Let me know if you ever stumbled upon a cemetery out in the middle of nowhere that you weren't expecting to find. If you liked the video, make sure to leave a thumbs up. I've got to get better at doing that. And I think last time I screwed up. The subscribe button, I believe, is over on this side. So hit the subscribe button. If I pick the right side of the screen, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell notification next to it to let me know, one, that I picked the right direction, and two, that you enjoy the content. And the bell notification will let YouTube know that you want to see when my videos go live. So other than that, thanks for watching, and everybody have a great day.